We're going to go ahead and get started. There's a lot of people trying to get in, so there's going to be people walking in. You're welcome. Please don't feel like you're interrupting, and we'll just accommodate you coming in. I want to start off by asking you, what would you do with an extra hour a day? Sleep. That's a legit answer, yeah. Me too, after this conference. Well, my name is Scott Willicky. I'm on the product management team at Smartsheet, and I lead our automation initiative. And what we work on is automating work processes. And I'm really excited to be here because we're going to show you how you can use some of these new capabilities to save yourself an hour a day while accelerating the work of your teams. And not only will you hear about that from me, you're going to hear about it from a couple of other people that are already using these capabilities as part of our early adopter program to come up, talk about how they're using it and how it's saving them time. So with that, let me walk through the agenda. First, I thought it'd be helpful for me to talk a little bit about how you've influenced our product direction and why we're introducing these capabilities today. Then we'll talk about a use case on how our own sales team is using these capabilities to save time. A customer has agreed to come up and talk about another use case about how they're using it. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. And this is engaged, so it's not just you asking me questions. I'm going to ask you some too. So our journey was one of a lot of research to get here. I have all kinds of diagrams of processes that look like this. And some of them are hand-drawn. And the way we collected these processes and this information about different work processes was in a variety of ways. We did internal focus groups with our employees that work directly with all of you on your processes. We also visited customers. And that's not actually an employee, but don't tell him that. My son Micah is 5, and he tells everybody he works at Smartsheet. So over the summer, he would join us on some of those focus group days, and he'd draw a picture of his process. We visited customers in some cases and drew processes and learned about what is challenging for them and what's working well. So we have all kinds of different notes and drawings like this. And then many of you probably contributed yesterday. I met many of you as we worked on a whiteboard and talked about processes and drew them and stuck them on there. And I assure you, our team will pore over this. We are really process geeks. So thank you for participating in that. One of the things we learned is that a lot of processes look like this in all different industries, whether it's a procurement request, a sales opportunity, we're requesting a discount maybe on a sales opportunity, professional services engagements, or we're trying to turn an idea into a new project. This is a very common process. Someone requests it. We collect a lot of information. We tend to collect the information in a lot of different places, email predominantly, but not only email. And then at some point, there's approvers before it can move forward. And usually there's multiple approvers in these processes. Does this look familiar to you? Yeah, this is what we saw a lot with different processes. So some of the pain points we saw in these processes are the following. The visibility into work status is a real challenge. So just knowing what the status of this work item is something that takes a lot of time and is very challenging to keep everybody on the same page. The good news is many people told us Smartsheets helped you a great deal with this. It's a single source of truth. Everybody can go collaborate on a sheet and put their information in there and see that status. Reports and Smartsheet sites allows you to give dashboards to summarize the status of work. And then we released notifications earlier this year that allowed people to receive notifications about the status of work when they're timely and relevant. So that was great. That was a good learning. And then there are some areas we can do better on. Progress gets stuck. I heard repeatedly a story about the busy VP, as I call him. And this busy VP needs to approve something or add one final bit of information before we can move on. But he doesn't learn and adopt new tools. He's too busy. Do you recognize this VP? Does this sound familiar? Yeah, a lot of head nodding, right? And often the story goes something like this. I send an email to the VP. He doesn't reply. So the next day I send another email. and we lose another day or so. And then when it's really critical and urgent, I send a text message to make sure he goes and reads the email. And I see a lot of you nodding when I said text message, right? Yeah. So this was a really common story we heard. The good news is update requests help with this already, and the new automated update requests and approval requests are going to help even more. The other thing we heard about was a lot of manual repetitive work. And we heard a lot of stories about this, but I think the best way to represent this is we did some qualitative analysis with surveys too. And among the information workers, we heard 59% of people said that they could save 6 or more hours a week by automating some of the manual repetitive work that they do. 6 or more hours a week. It's almost a whole day. It's more than an hour a day, just by automating that work. And what's also interesting is, of the people that know that they can save that time, 72% of people said that they would use the time that was freed up by automating that work to do higher value tasks for their company. Of course, 10% said that they would use that time for online shopping and social media, but it's your time, so I'll give it back to you and you use it however you like. So I had another interesting story that you'll see in the product today, that I spoke with a gentleman who is head of a PMO for a large university. And I was showing him wireframes before he built anything on the product about approval processes. And he said, this is great. We would definitely use this. Lots of approvals here. And so I'm patting myself on the back, and he asks, I can change the word approve though, right? And since we hadn't built the product, I said, well, sure, why not? And I said, but tell me, what would you change it to, and why do you want to change it? And he explained that, well, there's a lot of people that do approve, and that makes sense for them. But there's a lot of other people that we need to hold accountable for something. And for those people, if I showed them a button that said approve, that would probably be even confusing for them, because they know they're not going to approve this. But they need to be able to sign off on it. So that was really important for them. In other cases, we heard with a lot of you working with vendors. And I remember a construction company that works with cement truck vendors. And each day, they ask the cement truck vendor to send them a text message and let them know to confirm that the trucks will be on time tomorrow based on their plan. And we heard that repeatedly. Vendors confirm. We need to confirm with the vendor that everything's going according to plan. Professional services was another really common use case where we need to confirm that professional services is going to be on site with a client during a certain time period. So, and you'll see all of this reflected in the product today. So with the approval requests, it is called approvals, but you can go in and customize it. And if you need to change it to confirm or sign off or something else that's specific to your process, you can do that. Another thing we learned is that update requests are used a lot by customers. Customers love update requests. Do you all use update requests today in Smartsheet? Yeah, I see a lot of hands. So update requests are great because we can collect information from all of those people, and it all goes back to one place, so we have a single source of truth, and the rest of the team has visibility into it. So update requests have been really great for people. And the way I think about this is that update requests automated the process for the recipient of that update request. They don't have to log in, they don't have to do anything other than just fill out that form and the information goes into Smartsheet. What we're announcing today automates the rest of the process for those of us who create the process and send it out. Automated approval requests. So this is great because we have a lot of people that don't need to type in a lot of information and they just need to give a quick approval or a quick sign off. So having that really optimized UI specifically for this, because they're such a common process, is really valuable. Another learning we had is you heard probably in the keynote about various different functionalities we're releasing today. We're releasing push notifications on mobile and notifications in the desktop app, a whole new mobile experience where that is very optimized for your different mobile devices, and then the automated alerts and actions. The great news is that for the busy VP that's on the go, in the airport maybe, he can receive that approval request on his mobile device. If there's someone in construction that's on site, they can also work now on their mobile device and contribute to the process. So all of the capabilities we're releasing today come together for a really great solution. And so with that, And rather than just hearing from me and how we got here, I'm going to invite David Loads from our sales engineering team up, and he's going to tell you a little bit about how his team is using these capabilities to save an hour a day and accelerate their team's process. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Scott. Hi, everyone. My name is David Loads. I head up the sales engineering team here at Smartsheet. Mark was nice enough to call out an instance where I was wandering around a Starbucks parking lot, and he happened to catch me at a moment where I was very excited with what I'm about to show you today. So my job as a sales engineer manager is to manage a team that ultimately is supporting lots of sales reps. And those needs can range anything from a simple Q&A all the way up to an incredibly complex proof of concept, but any of their technical needs. And the way that we do that here at Smartsheet, we have about 150 sales reps, is to actually intake all of that information into one place. Okay? And in intaking that information into one place, as you can imagine, there are lots and lots of requests. So for us, and if I paint the picture for you, what ended up happening about 2 months ago was I had a full day of work. I was flying back home from Boston and realized that I had not completed this task that I have promised our sales organization that I complete on a daily basis. Now, just capturing the information is one thing, but the integrity of that information is another. So before I'm even able to assign out to any of my sales engineers that you're going to go work on this opportunity with that particular sales rep, I need to confirm that everything looks good. And there's a number of different ways that we do that, but one of them is to manually just look at the information. So after a request comes in, my job is to actually read the row and make sure that all the information is relevant, it's correct, and it's been filled out to completion. 150 sales reps, hundreds of opportunities. As you can imagine, the data is inaccurate fairly often. So one of the things that ends up happening with this process, and what I was doing about 40,000 feet somewhere over the Midwest, was to actually reach out to those sales reps and ask them to make updates to some of the requests that they had made. I also had to reach out to some of the managers. See, on some of these opportunities, they might be a little bit out of the scope of what we've signed up to actually do as a sales engineering team. So I needed to also get their approval to move forward and support this particular request. To Scott's point, sending that information out, it's great for them. They can let me know what's going on, but then it gets sent back to me, and what do I have to do? I have to populate it all back into the sheet. So you can imagine I'm sitting on this airplane trying to balance my Coke and some peanuts and trying to manage this process during a red eye, right? And I think that we've all been there at some point in our careers. We have some responsibility, and we're going to sacrifice some time, whether it's the dining room table or staying late in the office. And then it hit me like a lightning rod, or like a strike of lightning, thankfully not on the plane, that this entire process could be automated leveraging Smartsheet. So nothing changes on the front end. We still get these requests. But instead of having me read each one of those rows, I actually had Smartsheet read to make sure that all of the information was filled in correctly. And I'll show you in a second how I actually did that. Additionally, if it wasn't filled in correctly, Smartsheet would reach out on my behalf. It would ask the sales rep to make updates to the parts of the process that were filled in incorrectly. And in cases where I needed to get manager approval, it would reach out to that particular manager and ask them, do we have the go-ahead to actually support this request? Finally, on the back end, Smartsheet's going to come in and populate that information on my behalf. So what we're really talking about here is Smartsheet is now reading, requesting, populating, managing all of the process on the front end, and all my team needs to do now is actually assign a resource to ultimately get that supported. This is saved an hour a day. This process, when we were doing it manually, we had 2 30-minute meetings, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, to triage all of the requests. And we have now completely removed both of those meetings, and I just assign sales engineers in about a 5-minute period. Okay? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you live how we actually did that and what I did on the airplane. Sound good? Okay, so this is the first time that everybody's going to get to see Smartsheet in a live view. I think that we all saw on the keynote that we had screenshots there. So let me go ahead. We're going to update the projector. Perfect. Okay. Okay. So what I'm showing now on the screen is actually a shrunken down version of what we use currently at Smartsheet for these requests. This is happening today. We have a number of pieces of information as it relates to the account name, the amount of opportunity that's available. We have who the stakeholders are, who is the rep that's requesting this information, and their manager. And then finally, we have an area where we would actually be populating a sales engineer and ultimately bringing out, or ultimately assigning that resource. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is that we have some red areas. And those red areas have actually not been populated by, let me just zoom in for everybody here. Those red areas have not been populated by a sales rep. So this would be part of the manual process where I would have to go in and ask them to support that information. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and click on the new area down here below called Alerts and Actions. So a lot of you are familiar with this already. We've used this before for notifications. We've used it for reminders. But if I click this drop-down arrow, you'll now see that we have two additional options. The first is to actually create an approval request. So I can go ahead and select Next and define in a customized way how I want this approval request to work. So the first thing I'll do is I'll say, anytime that budget variance changes, I want to have Smartsheet take a look at it. And the way that I want Smartsheet to review it is to make sure that it is actually greater than 5,000. If it's not greater than 5,000, then we're going to kick off a request process. Okay? So with a few clicks of a button, Smartsheet's now going to take some of that work on my behalf. Now here's the really cool thing. I'm excited because I did watch the keynote, and obviously I saw Scott's introduction here. Nobody's mentioned yet that one of the things that we can do with these notifications, these approvals, and these update requests is they can be dynamic. So instead of sending it to an individual user, I'm going to map it to the contact list column that we have within Smartsheet. So now it's going to send out this request. If it sees it, it's going to reference who is the manager and know who to contact and then reach out on my behalf. Additionally, as Scott mentioned, we have some advanced settings where you're able to change this process to fit your vernacular, your terms, the values that you want to populate in here. But with a few clicks of a button, I have now created an approval request, and Smartsheet will manage this part of the process for me. So there's a second half to this. There's also the data integrity piece, right? Sales reps, sometimes they forget. They're moving very fast on the different fields that they need to fill in. So in the same way, with just a few clicks of a button, I can actually do the same thing, but instead, I'll have Smartsheet review the information, monitor the information, and then reach out to get a sales rep to update it on my behalf. Click the drop-down arrow, select Send an Update Request. We have a number of different options available on what's going to trigger that update request. In this case, I want Smartsheet to monitor anytime a new row has actually been added to the sheet. Now, in the same way that we can actually select how and when, we can add conditions. I was actually just talking with an individual, Jessica here, who was talking about, hey, there's some times that we need to send update requests. There's other times we don't. Well, Jessica, what you can do now is you can actually define when we're going to send out that update request based on whatever your parameters might be by simply selecting Add Condition. My two conditions, the ones that I have within this sheet, include an industry as well as the department. I want to make sure that both of these things are filled out. So if they're blank, then I want Smartsheet to reach out and have them update both of those things. Okay? The last piece of this is that dynamically updating piece so that this process or your process will scale. We can actually make sure that we're referencing the sales rep's contact information. And then what's been available for some time now, but is continuing to be available, is how we customize those deliveries. So I can actually create a custom message. We can define the frequency at which we're going to send this information. And then finally, I can actually select which parts of the sheet should be updated by the sales rep. So in less than 5 minutes, I've taken a process that literally has taken me an hour a day and made it to have Smartsheet manage the entire thing on my behalf. One more time. So Smartsheet is going to monitor for the industry. It's going to monitor for the department. It takes a little bit of time to make the call to the API, but ultimately it'll send out that update request and save you this time. One of the things that you know, as I'm clicking through this, it's interesting that we talk about enabling the end users, and Smartsheet as a company, our goal is to make sure that you feel empowered to ultimately create this sort of efficiency for your company, that your coworkers feel empowered to create this sort of efficiency with your company. There was no code, no developer, no IT. We did this in 5 minutes. I did it flying over somewhere over the Midwest, and created this automation where now I can spend my time doing other things that are going to push my business forward. You'll notice there was a drop-down that actually said that some updates had actually been made. Smartsheet is, on my behalf, reaching out to that sales rep with an update request, and that information is being sent to an email. So we have, because I've made myself both the sales rep and the manager, you'll notice that we have 2 additional emails in that. We have our update request email that we can select and update the form. Additionally, we have our approval email that's been sent through. So, you know, as I invite Scott back up here, I would encourage you to think about what that hour a day really means. You know, we start to sum it up and think about it in aggregate. And I want to take it one step further. An hour a day means 5 hours a week. That means 250 hours a year. That literally translates to a little over 6 working weeks, 40-hour work weeks. Okay? So I don't think that any of the people in this room disagree that the people that we've hired, the people that we work with, they have great ideas. They want to innovate. They want to push the business forward. Let's give them some of that time back so that they have the ability to go and do that. I'll invite Scott back up here to thank you.
Thanks, David. Really appreciate you sharing that with us. I'll share a story with you now, David, that we've been training the sales teams over the last couple of weeks, and I love this process. So I share this process with the different sales teams. And in one of those trainings, one of the sales reps went, "Oh." And when I asked him, share what's going on, he said, well, once I was updating Salesforce, and then within like a minute, David was already asking me for more information, and it was a little bit creepy. So he was relieved to know that actually that this process was all automated, and David wasn't looking over his shoulder as he made the changes.
Not creepy, not creepy.
But I love that story because I think it speaks to how we're accelerating that team's work, right? Instead of waiting for those 30-minute meetings each day, now that work is happening right away. As soon as the sales rep realizes that they didn't provide that information, they provide it, and the process keeps moving forward.
Yep.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. Look forward to speaking with everybody about their processes. Thanks.
So next, I'd like to welcome Joanne Eisenhart from Veritiv to come up and talk about how they've been using this capability as part of the early adopter program. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne Eisenhart with Veritiv Corporation, and I'm the Sustainability Specialist. Veritiv is a distribution company that we service business sectors in packaging, facility solutions, and the print business. We have 160 distribution locations across the US, Canada, and Mexico. We have about 8,700 team members, and we're an $8.3 billion a year sales company. So I'd like to share a little bit about how Smartsheet has helped me, and I'm going to talk about, give you a kind of a before and after, a little peek at what we've done. The light bulb turned on for me today in that earlier session and here. So as I go through this, there may be some things that you think, why didn't she do that? Why didn't she do that? I'm asking the same question. It's like, wow. So as soon as I get back to the office, I'm going to redo some of this that I'm showing you here today. So I was a part of the early adopters program here with Smartsheet, and I was building this team and travel and vacation calendar. And I wanted an approval process. I wanted to build in an approval that that a manager could approve that request, but it really wasn't available yet. So Smartsheet helped me with a workaround. It was okay, but it still wasn't really what I wanted. So through the early adopter program, when that became available, I started testing it right away. So again, I'm going to give you a little before and after as to what we did and how this automated approval process has really improved our workflow. So prior to having the automated approval process, team members would get the confirmation email from submitting the request through Smartsheet, and then they would forward that confirmation on to their manager, just kind of as an FYI. It really depended on that person remembering to send that email, let alone them remembering to click that they wanted the confirmation to begin with. So because of that then, there was no approvals logged or tracked. It was just kind of a word of mouth thing, kind of, oh, go ahead and go, you're good. So after the process, Smartsheet automatically sent the supervisor an email for their approval. This is where the light bulb turned on earlier today. I'm like, so they're getting an email, they have to go in, they have to click it. I need to work with the managers in our department to make sure that they have it deployed on their smartphone. Because how easy would that be for them? As you've seen, that approval notification comes through, they click approve, good to go. Additional team members are also notified at the same time that the manager is notified, and that is so they're that person's backup. They know that that person's going to be out of the office. They know that they need to be on call to help with any requests that would come in during that time frame. The requester then is notified of the approval, and the approvals are tracked. Okay, that's a beauty of it. We've got an ongoing tracking process. Start the process with a form, a Smartsheet form. The requester fills out that form and submits it. It automatically flows into our team calendar. That calendar is shared with all of the teams, so they have visibility to this full calendar and what's going on. The request for approval is automatically sent to the manager. Again, how neat would it be for them to be able to just get that on their phone? That'd be awesome. I think that will really help my team accept this. And I mentioned earlier, we have laggers, that, I have to log in, I have to do this and that. How easy will that be? I think it'll take care of my laggers. At the same time, a notification goes to that backup person. So if I'm somebody's backup, I'm going to get a notification, hey, Tina Travel in this case, is going to be out of the office these days. You need to be ready to help out with her work. So the supervisor or manager gets this email currently, eventually notified on their smartphone. They can click on the view the request. They see the full detail of that request. They can click on the approve or decline. That automatically sends a communication to the original requester. They know that it's been approved or declined. That requester then can click the login button to view those full details as well. Okay? So one last little thing here. This has really helped our process, really streamline it and aid in our team's communication. But one step better, as I mentioned, to get the managers on the mobile app will be great. But all the team members currently have it deployed to their smartphones. So all they have to do is click on the little icon. It says Team Travel, and the form, the Smartsheet form, pulls up. They submit it on the go. We have a fairly busy team. We're all over the country, and we travel a lot. So for those team members to be able to do that on the fly, literally on the fly, like David said, he was up in the air, to do that on the fly, not have to worry about, when I get to the hotel tonight, I have to log in, or because I need to request that my trip has been extended. We've got a problem in a certain location, I have to stay longer. This way they can click in there, extend the days of their trip, and they're good to go. So the automated process, along with the team members' ability to submit these requests on the go, and now, in the near future, our managers' ability to approve the request from their smartphone as soon as I get that set up, allows us all to know on any given day where all our team members are. With team members scattered all over, as I mentioned, the country and lots of travel, this process and Smartsheet has helped everyone stay connected. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Thanks so much for sharing.
Yes, you're welcome.
So tell me, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about how difficult was it to set this process up?
Okay, as you can tell, it was really easy to set up. Like I said, as soon as I get back, maybe even tonight, I'll start looking at ways to improve it based on that light bulb coming on today. Super easy. You know, probably from building the sheet, building the form, building in the approvals, gosh, maybe an hour total.
Great.
To build that for our whole team to be able to utilize.
That's great. And
So.
did you used to be in IT, or did you used to write code or anything like that?
No, heavens no. I have nothing to do, well, I have a lot to do with IT because I'm always asking them for support. So This is wonderful because I haven't had to ask for support. It's something that I could read through that screen and figure out, okay, how do I set up an approval? How do I put the conditions in there? The language was easy for me to understand, and I just built it.
Thanks so much, Joanne.
Thank you.
Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. I asked Joanne those questions because a lot of people we talk to have a lot of access to all these systems out there already that do have approval processes in them. And one of the ways that we're uniquely different and what we've worked really hard to do is by empowering the business user. Those other systems require you to be a system admin in those systems to go in and set up a process. And very few of us are system admins there. So by empowering the business user in Smartsheet, if you have permission to create a sheet, you have permission to go and automate your work process now. And we think that's really powerful. So how will you save? How will you use that extra hour a day? And I'll talk very briefly about our roadmap and what we're still working on and what we're going to be working on. And then we'll go into a little bit of Q&A. So we talked about approval requests today. We're going to even make it better. We know so many things we want to do, but we know that this is so valuable, we want to get it out to you today. And we think this will be great for you to go ahead and get started using. And we'll continue to incrementally approve it based on your feedback. Reminders, we know we can do more with reminders and incorporating time into those work processes. So that's an area of keen interest to us. And then other areas you'll see is moving things around, both within the sheet and across sheets, is a keen area of interest for my team. So these are all areas that we're thinking a lot about. We're looking for your feedback. I'll be talking to many of you at Engage and hopefully after to learn how we can even do better. And with that, I want to encourage you we have UX research. I hope a lot of you participated in that yesterday. There's new activities out there and new testing stations today, so please continue to go out there and engage with us. I'm putting my email address on the slide for a reason. I want you to reach out to me, okay? So if you have feedback or you want to talk about something or you think you have an interesting process that we can do better on, let me know. That's what I want to hear. And with that, we'll go ahead and use the rest of the time to engage a little bit and allow you to ask some questions. But I'm going to be asking you some questions about things we're doing well and things we can do better. So thank you for coming. And we have some microphones, so I think we can just, if you come up to a microphone and speak, that way we'll all be able to hear you.
Hi there, my name is Wendy. I'm from Cisco. And I find that building the process is very straightforward and easy. It's the governance with the people who you want to use it.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe from the user base or from you, how do we get people using the process so that they use the tool and experience the 1 hour back?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think something for me is the mobile experience and notifications, I think, are going to go a long way here. Even as part of the early adopter program, we kind of haven't had all of these pieces together until now. So I think being able to send out the approval request, the update request to different people on their mobile device and allow them to get that notification when it's relevant and immediately and allow them to participate will help a lot. But if any of you have things that you'd like to share about how you think we can do better there as a company, or how a process that works for you that you'd like to share, please come up and tell us about it. But I want to ask another question of you is, what can we do better on? Yes, yeah.
I love seeing the examples, especially as it ties to a real life use case. So when I go to your solution center, I can dig into that and then I can translate it to what we do. But I think there's areas where I'm blocked, where I'm like, wow, like you were saying on the plane, oh, it hit you like a lightning bolt. I want those lightning bolts to come a lot faster. So,
Great.
And I think the thing that you're saying is, like, how can I get back an hour of time? If I keep repeating that and ask my colleagues, then the ideas will start to flow. So more examples, more solutions that are outcome driven. Like, this is how you can get an hour back, 5 hours back, a week back.
Great. Outcome-driven examples. I love it. That's actionable for me and my team. And for Jusung, who's part of our marketing team, and we'll work on getting those samples out to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jusung from the product marketing team. We've created 5 examples that will go live at 10 a.m. today. Your reps should share the links. It's 5 use cases that have templates of automation use cases. It has a document attached about how to use it and how to talk about it as well. So hopefully those are of use to everyone. And you have Scott's email right there. If you have any feedback, if this is the right one, or if you would like to see something else, reach out to us as well. So this is only our first steps. Okay, thanks.
So thank you very much for being here.
Hi, I'm Carol Smith. I'm with Sodexo, and our user rep actually developed a user council that I lead, and it's built a lot of interaction and demonstrations from other teams. It's not us delivering information. It's our teams and our companies that use Smartsheet to deliver information back to us on how they're using the tool. And it's fostered a lot of interaction and new ideas, things I had never considered using Smartsheet for. So.
That's great. That's a fantastic story.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jerry. I own a software development company called JV Systems. First of all, I would love to tell you guys you're doing a great job. We build software. We know how inundating the requests can be and all the feature requests. So you guys are doing a fantastic job. I've led a team of 17 people to totally change our project management processes from the software development world, in adopting Smartsheets, particularly with well, I should say it's across all age ranges. The question that comes up oftentimes is how can we easily define our columns of data? So if I create a column that has a red, yellow, green stoplight in it, my users are looking for a way for me to define to them what each of those lights mean, because it can be different based on who's actually creating the sheet. And I've seen some examples where you guys might do a collapsible legend and things like that, and unfortunately the database geek in me is going to tell you that really can disrupt your API integrations with your sheets. And so if there was a way to do a column type description text, if you right click on the column and have an opportunity to at least define, hey, red light means this for our organization for this column, that would be fantastic.
That's great feedback. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate that.
Hi, I'm Craig. 2 things that I need for the approval process. One is if you go look at the logic, you have the ability to say or you can do and. Mm-hmm. If I have 5 things, I can do all ands, or I can do all ors.
Yep.
But I can't do this or this and that. Mm-hmm. So that keeps, I do consulting.
Okay.
So I build
Good.
formulas. So that keeps me in work. But it'd be a lot easier for my customers if they didn't need me. So that's one thing I need. The second thing is, for approvals, there's data that the approver needs to see. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I can fit that into a cell. But a lot of times it's a document or a URL or some process or a schedule that the person who's going on vacation is going to need to can I let this person go on vacation?
Yep.
So it's not just a yes or no. And what I've seen with other approval processes, if you don't have the data, things get approved that you really wish had not been approved just because it's so easy to click that button. So there has to be some way to link a sheet, a project, a document, something back during the approval process so they can access it if they need to.
Great feedback. So with that, I'll respond to that just very briefly in that you should be able to include documents today. And if you can't, let me know, Craig, because that's something we definitely can do in that approval process. And I heard a clap or two around or and grouping of conditions, and I see a lot of head nodding. So just to be totally transparent with you, we're very concerned about how that will affect the user experience. And will that make it an intimidating user experience, and will it make it complex? But if we let our customers make that decision. So if that's important to you, submit requests. Submit them to who you work with at Smartsheet. My email address is here. I'm walking around the conference. Send me an email, because at the end of the day, it's very helpful for us to kind of be able to count those number of requests and have contact information for people we can reach back out to. And many of you have probably met me on the phone where we reach out and say, hey, can you walk through this process really quick with us, and let's see if it's easy for you to use. And on that note, so let's continue to engage, but they're telling me to wrap up the session, so we'll do that afterwards. Thank you very much for being here.